Yeah, Kirby's not happening now, isn't it?
But what can you do for the pink puffball when today we got something special for you all, and the best way I could describe it is... how did I put it in my script again? Oh, right, okay. Have you ever thought about Mega Man and Sonic doing a fusion dance? Well, that's what Code Bunny is all about, folks.
Another indie game that I have to say right off the bat, this was given to me as a review code thanks to the people at Team 7 Star. I know for a fact that I had a lot of fun playing this game, especially in the midst of working between other projects here and there, and honestly, I just can't wait to get the ball rolling with this video here. Right after this quick tea session, alright? I'll be right back.
2 hours later.
It really hits the spot.
But let's get serious about Code Bunny for a second, because clearly with a short introduction, there isn't enough to demonstrate just what the hell I'm even talking about today, which is good for me honestly, because that means more viewer retention on my end.
Now, Code Bunny for a while is a game that I understood what it was trying to be, more or less, at least the moment that it was presented to me by the folks who developed the game, because yeah, let's be real, this was not under my radar.
Yeah, unfortunately, like all fucking indie games at this point, I had no clue about this one until about a few months ago when it was presented to me by the folks of Team 7 Star as a Mega Man action platformer with Sonic levels of speedrunning. And as a fan of both of those blue boys, my mind immediately had a light bulb effect, which was enough to hook me in and get this video going.
Again, I'm willing to own responsibility and admit to the fact that my radar on indie games is utterly pathetic at this point, but again, the hook of this being a combination between two of my favorite platformers of all time, some franchises at that, is honestly intriguing to me, and also something that is quite, as far as I'm aware at least, quite unprecedented.
While we have games out there that do push the unconventional in platformers like Celeste, which I hope to cover one day on the channel, Code Bunny is quite different from that game in some regards. For one, just the thought that a game is able to blend both the Mega Man and Sonic elements into one is intriguing, especially for someone like me, because it does sound kinda surprising. I mean, looking at the trailers alone for Code Bunny, you can clearly see the design philosophy of those franchises respectively, and it shows where the heart of the developers were at when making this game. Code Bunny effectively allows both gameplay styles to flourish and develop properly as you're going through the motions, and that's why to me it already has an iconic feel to it.
And also, just to get this out of the way, I'm also glad that it's not a roguelike.
When I was covering both 30XX and Elsie for the channel, I didn't mind what the developers were doing for both of those games, but Code Bunny automatically wins for me, not because of my bias, though I will admit there is some of that here, but because it inherently focused on being a platformer exclusively rather than just reinventing the wheel. To start there is what you'll love the most about Code Bunny, because while the platforming may seem bare bones, there is a lot of heart and soul poured into the mechanics and gameplay structure this game has from the get-go. It's perhaps the biggest selling point of this game, and if this wasn't shown numerous times at Sage Expos for that reason alone, then I don't know what else to tell you.
But I do know that we have a story synopsis for this game, so naturally let's get down to business here and see what Code Bunny is all about.
Quick disclaimer before we begin, because I do want to be honest with you guys and all, but I didn't fully pay attention that much to the story when I first played Code Bunny. To tell you the truth even, I don't remember much about the actual plot, to the point where I blacked out in the middle of it and then remembered, oh shit, there's a story to pay attention to.
Look, while the people of Code Bunny may have given me a review code here, I have my own opinions about this game at the end of the day, so you have to understand that, and in terms of the story here, it didn't really hit me as hard.
To kind of do a quick self-reflection here, I think the main reason alone why I didn't pay attention to the story, to read my final notes first, it's mainly because I was swamped with other games around the time I was recording this, like Sonic and Shadow Gens, and even Mega Man 03 to, kind of give a little teaser of what's to come. And in terms of the overall scope of the story, well, Code Bunny doesn't have a bad story, but because of how my brain operated things during my time playing, it sort of brushed it to the side, and I do apologize for not giving it full attention like others have if they covered the game. So based on what I can remember, and then some, Code Bunny takes place in the world of Planet Lumna in the year 2090, where thanks to the efforts of a technological conglomerate called Lagos Hyperbolics, they are able to siphon an energy source called Ether from a comet named Yggdrasil. Because of these efforts, Lagos Hyperbolics began a space program called the YV Space Program that, it does something, I'm sure of it, and that's where our protagonists, Hazel and Axel, come into play. The two are enlisted by Lagos Hyperbolics to protect the program from the hands of a group called Mad Bunny, who seem to want to present themselves as a group you don't want to live and learn your lesson with. I mean, they effectively destroyed a whole damn city to show that they mean business, acting as our tutorial stage, and also, yeah, This surely says something, doesn't it? But you're probably wondering here, since when all of a sudden was a technology company the good guy in a video game? Well, that's what I thought initially, but clearly this turns out to be an otherwise dragged out plot twist that honestly went off the rails the moment that it happens. Turns out that Mad Bunny are actually the good guys here. Shocker, I know, right? Foiling Lagos' plans of what is essentially world domination, and we just happen to blindly follow orders in the process. With Hazel, this comes off more of a tragedy since she's forced now to fight her best friend Shoko, who reveals herself to be the ringleader of Mad Bunny, while on Axel's side of things, well, he's really starting to understand it now.
What am I fighting for?
But Hazel and Axel continue to fight the good fight once they learn the whole truth and nothing but the truth behind Lagos and the world at large, as they stop the threat of both Loon, the boy you meet at the beginning of the game, and Soleil, the CEO of Lagos, who also happens to be Shoko's mother. And it turns out that she wanted to use the space program to reshape the world into a world of truth, which Hazel and Axel both outright say, hey, stop that, and proceed to kick ass and save the day. And Loon? Yeah, don't worry about it.
That's pretty much the story, again, at least from what I can remember. And while the story synopsis here is short, I will say that there were a lot of themes here and there that the game did dedicate itself to.
Some major themes that this game center itself around are the concepts of building relationships and handling grief, which is a weird thing to say about a game that has space bunnies on the cover. Then again, we have a blue hedgehog that fights gods for a living, so I think you could take what it is at this point. And in terms of how they handle those themes, it has what I can say is heavy Majora Mask vibes, and where they downright want you to feel uneasy about the fantastical nature of the world, and the game does lend itself to those themes and also presenting Hazel and Axel in terms of the rationale of who they are. The story shows us a glimpse of their personalities and how they want to present themselves to the world and to us the player. Now, do they go somewhere with all that? I can't tell you because again, I don't think I'm in a position well enough to speak about those themes and analyze them since I didn't pay that much attention to the story. Again, not to say that Code Bunny's story is bad, I have to admit it has a solid premise at the end of the day, but because it was never really my intention to play the game in this sense, my time was never fully invested in that area.
If only I wasn't juggling with so many things around the time I was playing this, I'd obviously appreciate it a little more, but perhaps in the future, if there's like a new game mode or story mode, I'll definitely pay a lot more attention to that.
I mean, this is what Team 7 Star is planning to do in the near future of sorts, and with time, I'll probably do a more dedicated analysis to the game's story when that inevitably happens.
And it's definitely not to delay Kirby or Okami, that's for sure.
But I will say this though, man, I really love the character designs they got going here. Seeing futuristic bunnies in a Mega Man-like setting never felt so amusing and something definitely eye-catching. And that's the biggest thing about Code Bunny for me personally, as I really admire the presentation this game has, and the pixel art is definitely something to appreciate as well. Before talking about gameplay, for a second here, I want to state how cool and Gunvolt-esque this game feels with the graphics, and that's definitely a compliment on their end. As I am playing through the Zero series by the time this video is being uploaded, I can definitely see the intentionality of wanting to make Code Bunny similar to that art style, and the pixel art makes up for that. Legit, it just feels straight out of a DS or a GBA game the minute you play it, and that is something I absolutely love coming from someone who grew up with the DS. Like, Hazel and Axel never felt so damn cool to see in action.
But to go back to what I said before, this is a crossover, at least in terms of its game design, and so let's finally talk about that.
As I said before, this is a Sonic and Mega Man crossover here, where you have the speed and momentum of a Sonic game paired with character design and stage layouts like that of a Mega Man title. It seems weird at first circumstance, I mean, I get it, but when you get down to playing Code Bunny or just seeing the footage for yourself here, you understand that they work tremendously well together, and it is something that I find a lot of enjoyment overall. Stage design also never felt so enjoyable to go through, albeit a bit boring at times. The game tries to lean way too hard on the Mega Man aesthetics with the futuristic set pieces that it does lose the identity of the game somewhat if you just remove the bunny characters from the equation. I know I said earlier that this game does have an iconic feel the moment you boot up the game, and it definitely does, but it wasn't until I finished the game and removed my rose-tinted lenses that I realized after the fact that this game, it can be pretty generic. I mean, you have the basic settings here, like a futuristic cityscape, a forest stage, a space stage, Tokyo for some reason, but hey, you know what, it was actually pretty cool, and this white space area as a final stage, but they also sort of don't speak to me at times. The only one that did in its full capacity was the stage with the hats that teleported you to certain areas, and I thought that was a pretty cool gimmick, and so that caught my eye. And the space stage at Halagos Hyperbolics, where you're mad dashing through all these ships here and there, that it looks visually appealing to me, reminding me of Sonic Advance 2 for some reason. It could be that pixel art again that makes up for it, because I'm a sucker for pixelated graphics when done right, and despite my critiques at the end of the day, I still enjoy going through the stages as Hazel or Axel. Now, do the stages feel minimal and oftentimes bare bones as hell? Yeah, they do, but I can still sit back and go through the stages with breeze and enjoy myself to the fullest that I think makes Code Bunny feel a lot rewarding in my eyes. Hell, there's even a section in Axel's campaign that allows you to grind rail, so yeah, I think this easily wins by default. Boss fights are also something that I admire, really having a neat difficulty dynamic as you continue onwards. And with that pixelated art style, they make up for some cool set pieces too, and I love how much they're bouncing on the screen from time to time, really changing things up by the second. Of course, like a Mega Man game, they have a pattern that you can exploit at the end of the day, but with how busy you'll be trying to avoid them, you really don't pay that much attention to them until you die the first few times. Or you could just do what I did in my playthroughs, where you just spam Hazel's parry multiple times and be completely invulnerable, because yes, that is a thing you can do in this game, dead ass. But notice I'm talking more about the Mega Man comparisons and not so much the Sonic ones, and that's because I haven't talked about the ranking system yet. Code Bunny has a ranking system where the faster you beat a stage along with certain requirements here and there like no deaths or damage taken, the higher the rank is. This means learning how the stage works in subsequent playthroughs to better understand how the game works, and like Sonic, figure out the fastest way to reach the end. And I love this because it offers a lot of replay value without feeling too tedious, and like a Sonic game, it merits a great feeling of accomplishment when you do reach that A or S rank in a stage. God, yes, give me that succulent S rank. Since you have two characters to play as, Hazel and Axel, they both have different playstyles for you to dive into. Hazel is the short-range sword fighter that mad dashes across the screen, while Axel is more of the bouncy type where his ice skating skills are more long-range and built on bringing momentum to your platforming. Both do bring a lot of kinetic energy whenever you're playing through a stage, and I feel satisfied whenever I was able to play as both of them in their respective campaigns. Unique to each of them are also their special abilities, which, I have to be honest, despite what I just said a few seconds ago, I am a little bit mixed on them. Hazel has a lock-on ability where when you lock on a target and strike them and dash across them, you get to have an added platform to jump across things. It's quite nifty and definitely requires precise timing if you want to get the momentum going, and I love how she straight up zooms through the enemy, like they're really keeping up with the bunny aesthetics here. You can even do this with her parry ability, which I found more useful in the boss fights like I already mentioned way back, but her main bread and butter is that lock-on, so best use it appropriately. Axel, well, despite how much I said that I love the ice skating physics that he has, and it kind of reminds me of Shadow in some aspects, I have a little bit of mixed feelings about his overall gameplay. He has a spinning ability that allows him to bounce on enemies like their springs paired with his stomp attack to add more to your jumping skills, kind of acting like the Sonic gameplay style if you go back to those comparisons. But unlike Sonic, I don't find his moveset to be that appealing compared to Hazel's, and while on the one hand, I like to give the devs their dues for making them stand out from Hazel, but at the end of the day, I much prefer Hazel because that lock-on never felt so amazing to pull off, and when you do time it right, oh man, it just feels so exhilarating. Axel is where I really had to adjust my gameplay style to fit his mold, and I didn't feel like I was enjoying myself as much as I did with Hazel, until my second playthrough, that is. Listen, stage design I don't think was suited for his gameplay personally, and while it is inherently different, it doesn't hit as hard as it should. For boss fights though, man does he finish those fuckers off of a breeze compared to Hazel. Unlike Hazel who has to consistently dodge attacks, lock on and parry as if her life depends on it, Axel turns these bosses into easy mode thanks to this invincibility shield that he has. Whenever he gets hit by an attack, he has a shield for it that resets every few seconds, and in the off chance that he does take damage, it's nowhere near as much as Hazel does. Hazel is like a glass cannon in this game, and when it comes to campaign, sometimes I feel like I was about to break the damn controller, either because of my stupidity or because the game decided to say otherwise. So what this means on Axel's side of things is that you can effectively defeat bosses with almost little to no effort because you can just bounce on them in the corner repeatedly and not take damage during that time. It's broken as hell and something I found enjoyable in his campaign, yeah, but again, his overall gameplay initially didn't vibe with me. I understand that the more you play with him, and by extension Hazel, the more you understand how they function within the stage design and the layout of the game. The devs want you to experiment and continue to play this and see how far you can go with each character, and it does give that replay value some added bonuses. In fact, I'm glad I learned more about how to use Axel properly thanks to the classic mode, since I did feel bad the first time when I was going through a story campaign, but it does feel like a major learning curve. While I enjoyed going back to those stages with him again and getting to familiarize myself, the fact that it took me a second playthrough to appreciate it is where I fear Axel kind of loses the appeal to me. Personally, it would have been better if he was given more perks like a double jump and had the stomp attack as the bouncing ability instead, so that platforming was more to his favor rather than what we got with the little dude. In fact, now that I think about it, I wish there were more perks in general, because the gameplay, while fun enough to get a good feeling for a while, it's also too basic for my liking. While the abilities are something that does give them flavor, it's not enough for me to see the bigger picture with this otherwise 2-hour experience. I wish there was an upgrade system where in each stage we learn new skills and attacks and make the stages harder as we continue onwards. That way the game feels more appealing than just using the same skills over and over again. I do understand that this is a small team and their very first game at that, but it would have been cool to see more than what we got.
Still, what we did end up getting, well, Code Bunny is actually a solid experience.
I do recommend this game, notwithstanding my bias and all, if you are up for something quick and refreshing in these trying times, and I hope they continue with this in the form of a sequel or something. I know I said earlier that they have plans to update the game with a new story mode, but maybe in time, a sequel would definitely help bring this to a degree of a Freedom Planet, or maybe even spark the Electric Jester. The charm is here after all, and the gameplay is definitely something you can expand upon if you continue to look at the Mega Man and Sonic influences. But at the end of the day, a lot of thought and effort again was put into this game, and it definitely shows, which I commend their ability to bring us something that really is worth the time playing. And in case I didn't mention this part, and I hate that I'm mentioning it right at the end of the video here, it's only 10 bucks too, so that means it's not that big of an investment, and something I definitely think you will all enjoy at the end of the day. I sure as hell did, and if I wasn't given this review code, you bet your ass I would have paid that in a second.
Again, I want to thank the people at Team 7 Star for allowing me the opportunity to talk about this game and to show you just how fun of an experience it was. And so, with that now out of the way, and I'm kind of like improvising at this point, it's time for us to go back to the Mega Man Zero series. Yeah, with the third game now on the horizon, there is a lot that we got to talk about there, as well as other reviews that I kind of want to do for the channel for this year and all that, which you probably already know, but we'll have to wait and see for that for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, love you all to 120. As always, stay safe and sexy out there. Do good into the world. Have fun. Peace out and take care. When the hell am I gonna play Kirby?